I thought today we could celebrate the upcoming Halloween season by reading a little bit of this book of mythical beasts and magical creatures. The book of mythical beasts and magical creatures. DK. Written by Stefan Krensky and illustrated by Pham Quang Puke. I think that's how you pronounce it. Not totally sure, please. If you know how to pronounce it better, I'd love to learn, so please let me know in the comments. But yeah, I thought we would go through a couple. I thought we would kind of browse through this book, and I could just stop and read about any of the monsters or mythical creatures that catch my eye. And I'll be doing some tracing with my little chopstick tool as we go, because you guys know that tracing is one of my favorite triggers, and there is just simply not enough of it out there. So I've come to change that. If you're wondering what this little white thing is, I am a firm believer in taking advantage of your public library. So this is a library book, and I've just put this here to protect my location, since it does say which library this book belongs to. Alright, let's have a quick look. The art in this book is so cool. Okay, so it looks like we've got some great categories here. Our mysterious world, good and evil, tricksters, shapeshifters, almost human, creatures of the deep, winged wonders, beasts of the world. Just wanted to quickly take my sweater off because I was getting a little bit warm. Okay, so let's have a flip through. I'm definitely excited for some of these categories, especially creatures of the deep. I don't know what it is about like sea monsters, but I love that stuff. Okay. Introduction. Ancient people were curious about the universe around them. What made the sun cross the sky each day? Why were some rainstorms nothing more than falling water, while others included loud rumbles and bright flashes of light? To answer these questions, they created stories, tales, grandson, oh dear, Berglamir, and his wife, who apparently isn't named. All future giants were descended from them. Let's get some naming some of the female legends, guys. Come on, we can do better. So Ymir is kind of spooky. Direwong. I'm gonna kind of go through and just see what pops out at me. Oh, the moon rabbit. Alright, well, we're trying to relax, so the moon has something to do with that. Okay, let's do a little bit of reading about the moon rabbit. Moon rabbit, charming creature of Chinese legend who makes its home on the moon. According to Chinese folklore, if you look up at the moon in the night sky, you may just be able to make out a shadowy figure. This is the moon rabbit. This creature is not alone, though. It is a friend of the moon goddess, Shanghe, who is the one who brought it to the moon in the first place. Very interesting. I know that this is, I'm familiar with this from mostly Chinese folklore, from Japanese folklore. Many people might know Sailor Moon, whose name is Usagi, which is a reference to the rabbit of the moon, which is kind of a fun little fact. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, let's see. I'm a big fan of ghosts, so this is really fun. Let's take a look at the Dullahan. If you should encounter a man riding a black horse carrying his head under one arm, you have met a Dullahan, a spirit of Irish folklore. In the other hand, the Dullahan holds a whip made of the bones of a human spine. You can see that here. How scary. It kind of looks like a sword from like the Soul Calibur games. The Dullahan's wide mouth stretches from one side of his face to the other, and he only stops riding to call out a person's name. He then takes that person's soul, leaving the remaining body to die. Scary. I think that there are also, in legend, Dullahan females. I'm not sure why it refers to it only as male here, but that's really cool. Okay, let's pick another one on this page. This is fun. Okay, let's look at this guy. I kind of like this guy. He's real spooky looking. Okay, let's look. A Bambo. According to Central African legend, the Obambo ghost lives in the wilderness until it returns home to the village in which it once lived as a person. Ooh, spooky. The Obambo doesn't shriek or moan, but it wants to stay near its home. The villagers make a small figure to represent the Obambo and build it a special house where it can rest in peace. So it's just like real damn grumpy. Okay, cool. Alright, let's move on. I want to make sure to look at a wide variety. Ooh, Cerberus. Cerberus, of course, is the three-headed dog guardian of the underworld in Greek mythology. The poisonous plant aconite was created from Cerberus's saliva. Okay, that's an interesting little tidbit. I didn't know that one. I think most people are pretty familiar with Cerberus, so I'm going to move on here. Amet. The demon known in ancient Egypt as the devourer of the dead. The mythical demon or goddess Amet was pretty hard to miss. She had the head of a crocodile things that I strive to be known as. Just heads up, these are my goals. None of these descriptions was very comforting. However, Ahmet lived in the underworld, so the only people who had to deal with her were already dead. In a meeting that took place soon after death, I believe, basically, if I remember this correctly, your heart would be weighed against a feather. A person needed a light heart to escape being eaten by Ahmet. So if your heart was light, meaning it wasn't full of regrets and bad things, basically like sins, if you were like an innocent good person, your heart would be lighter than the feather, and Ahmet would spare you, basically. Good and evil. Okay, let's get into some of the more classic kind of stuff. Like the unicorn. I think everybody is familiar with the unicorn. There are a lot of different ideas of unicorns, of course. A much-loved horse-like creature with a single horn on its head. I always really liked the kind of more traditional stories of unicorns, where they are kind of more guardians, and they're like kind of the the antithesis of good. Usually they're very pure and innocent, but they can also bestow powers on people, especially young women a lot of the time. I think it's really cool. Okay, let's move on to another one. Ooh, here are a bunch. Okay, I love fairies. Growing up, my mom would always tell me that she had seen fairies when she was a child. My mother grew up in Africa, in Kenya, so there was a lot of folklore and interesting things around her, but she was originally from England, where a lot of these kinds of myths about the Fae kind of come from, not England necessarily, but around kind of Great Britain area. So I grew up listening to all these stories about fairies, and I loved them. I always wanted to get kidnapped by fairies. Probably not a great idea, but I don't know, when you hear don't eat the food and the fairies will keep you there forever, it never sounded that bad to me. Fairy life seems kind of cool. Alright, let's look. Okay, here we go. A West African fairy. So this, or these guys, here we go, may have been what my mom saw. The West African Aziza are a shy but helpful fairies, teaching people how to use fire and become better hunters. However, they can be less friendly to people who don't show respect for animals and nature. That sounds like a pretty classic kind of fairy. These look like kind of the really classic style that you see. Azrai, a fairy from English folklore. Azrai are rare creatures that live in the water and only come out to surface once every 100 years. Azrai grow only by light of the moon, and if exposed to sunlight, dissolve into the water and are never seen again. That sounds stressful, man. Too stressful. Alright, let's pick. Okay, these two look almost connected, so I'm curious what their connection is. The Berry of Persia are winged spirits who can be mischievous, but who also do good deeds for people. Their enemies are the Deva, who try to capture them and lock them up in iron cages. No, bro, we need freedom, girl. Okay, so here's the Deva. The Deva of Persia hated the good-natured Berry. After all, the Deva were evil spirits, even though the name means a being of shining light. Interesting. Of course, throughout this book, I'm going to be reading a lot of names that I am not familiar with, so please forgive me if I butcher things. Alright, I want to do a little extra fairy learning because I really love Fae. Spirits. Okay, so also know about quite a few kinds of dragons, so let's have a quick look through. According to Sumerian legend, Ker was a dragon that lived in the underworld at the dawn of creation. One of Ker's most evil deeds was to kidnap the goddess ruler of the underworld. I'm so sorry. I'm very dyslexic. This is not a good idea for me to be doing this. The god Enki was furious with Ker, killed the dragon, and rescued the ruler of the underworld. Nice. Okay, wyverns. I know a lot of people get confused about the difference between wyverns and dragons. Let's see if they explain it well here, but otherwise I'll quickly go over it. Popular in Europe and North America, the wyvern was easy to tell apart from other dragons because it had 2 legs instead of 4. It also had a barbed tail that could act as a weapon if the wyvern got tired of using its sharp teeth and claws. Wyverns could not speak, but they could be clearly understood, especially when hungry. If you've read the 4th Harry Potter book or watched the movie, the Hungarian horntail that Harry has to fight in the first challenge, is technically a wyvern. You can pay attention to that next time you watch that movie or read that book. It's a fun little fact. This guy looks almost kind of like a griffin. I'm gonna go to... Oh, okay. Here we go. Kukulakan, the large feathered serpent. Kukulakan, also known as Quetzalcoatl by the Aztecs, was worshipped by the Mayan people of Mesoamerica as a god of creation. Although human sacrifices were popular in Mesoamerican culture, Kukulakan did not demand them as proof of its followers' emotions. Well, that's nice. That stuff is too violent for me. Very cool. I know a lot of people name their snakes after this guy, which is pretty cool. Alright, let's just do one more. Maybe 2, because I like dragons a lot. At birth, the Scandinavian Fafnir was a greedy dwarf prince who killed his own father in pursuit of treasure. A curse turned him into a dragon, but one whose shiny scales could not be harmed by weapons. Unfortunately for him, Fafnir was killed by a hero, Sigurd, who managed to pierce the dragon's exposed underbelly. Is anybody getting Hobbit vibes? That is basically the story of Smaug. So you can see how much modern pop culture draws from these kinds of stories. It's wonderful. Okay, I'm just curious about this guy. And then we might as well read him because we've read every other one on the page, and then we'll move on. Okay, so Orochi. Oh, interesting. The Japanese Yamata no Orochi, or Orochi for short, had 8 heads and 8 tails to match. Each year, Witches are usually women with special powers, especially the ability to cast spells and create magic potions. The idea that witches are mostly female, arguable. They are more widely known to be bad than good, arguable. Either way, they should never be underestimated or ignored. True, although a lot of them just want to be left alone. Okay, let's look at the crone. The crone is, of course, the very classic style, like Western witch that you see a lot at Halloween. A popular figure in Western European folklore. The crone is an old woman with supernatural powers. Her only company is a black cat, and she usually wears a black dress, a tall pointed hat, and rides through the air on a broomstick. I would argue that she keeps the company of her coven as well. And if you really want to get into it, technically the company of Satan. The idea that witches have green skin like this literally came out of The Wizard of Oz. If you look back, that's the first time the visualization of witches having bright green skin was ever kind of seen. And the reason they did it was because The Wizard of Oz was a breakthrough movie when it came to Technicolor technology for film, and they wanted to show off how vibrant the colors were, so they painted her green so that they could show off some more color, and it just kind of stuck. Alright. Circe. Okay, this is actually a specific witch. A sorceress in ancient Greek mythology. Circe is from the island I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. I never remember how to pronounce these things. Where she was visited by the Greek hero Odysseus during the Odyssey, if you ever read that, and his men. She changed the men into pigs, and would have done the same to Odysseus, but he was protected by a magical charm. Later, she returned the men to their human form. To her chagrin, honestly. Okay. Calcu. A powerful and evil sorceress, Calcu appears in the myths of Mapuche people of Chile and Argentina. The Machi can battle the Calco and use their knowledge of potions and herbs to heal the sick. Interesting. Okay, Baba Yaga. I'm sure many of you know about Baba Yaga. Look how spooky she is. Look at her spooky house. It's really angry and it's creepy feet. I was terrified of Baba Yaga as a kid. I think it was on an episode of Arthur, and it just scared the bejesus out of me. This Russian witch is said to live deep in the woods. Baba Yaga's home is a hut that stands on magical chicken legs, and she often shares it with her two sisters. Visitors to the hut are sometimes given difficult tasks, and if they fail to complete them, they may end up staying for dinner as the main course. Spooky. Mangkukulam. The Philippines is home to sorcerers called Mangkukulam. They cast spells against people using various rituals. Sometimes they do this for their own purposes, and sometimes they help people get revenge on others. Look at this very unhappy doll. Looks similar to kind of a voodoo style, but obviously from the Philippines. Okay, let's keep looking forward. El Chupacabra. I think most of you know about El Chupacabra, the goat sucker. Very spooky.
captures something to eat, even a full-sized adult person, it can just open its mouth really wide and swallow the person whole. It's kind of terrifying. You really wouldn't want to just look up and see that. The Chimera, of course, is a combination of animals. Monstrous three-headed beast of ancient Greek legend. Very spooky, very spooky. Oh, cool, a Wendigo. If the Wendigo were only a tall, gangly creature with glowing eyes and sharp claws, it would already be a monster. But the description doesn't stop there. This ghastly creature is also said to have yellow skin and matted hair, long fangs, and a darting tongue. None of these things has improved its appearance. In the tale of the First Nations, Wendigos are commonly 2 or 3 times the size of an average person. They travel silently through the woods, are great hunters, and also have the power to control the weather. Yet, none of these abilities keep them from being painfully thin, while being hungry almost all the time. And what do they hunger for? Why, human flesh, unfortunately. They are cursed to wander endlessly in a desperate search to satisfy that hunger, and if they fail at that, they will die. It was once believed that humans who were greedy might turn into Wendigo. Very spooky. You wouldn't want to turn into this guy. Although, I have always wanted to be taller. So that's a thing. Tricksters. Alright, this should be fun. Get into those, like, Loki types. Anansi. Spider from West African folklore who created the sun, the moon, and the stars. Look at him. Looks like right here he is creating the sun. Maybe like weaving it kind of like a web. Although he usually took the form of a giant spider, Anansi didn't just sit around making webs. In addition to creating the sun and other celestial bodies, he taught people how to write and grow crops. Very interesting. So he is like a educator for people. Little Mischief. Now I would consider this in line with fairies, pixies, brownies, especially even elves, depending on what you are looking at. But that's fine. Okay, let's see. Probably most people are familiar with most of these, so let's look at maybe some of the ones that are a little less known, like imps. Imps are bony little demons from English-German folklore, naughty rather than evil. They love playing pranks on people. Their gargoyle-like faces are often twisted into a smirk. Pixies. These lively creatures from the southeast English countryside wear pointed hats and gather with other pixies for dancing and wrestling in the night. Pixies can be friendly, but they also cast charms on people, which don't always lead to happy endings. Spooky. If you play Legend of Zelda, most of the Kokori and I believe Tingle is based on pixies. Okay, Raven, trickster bird of the First Nations. I grew up learning about Raven because I grew up kind of in the western BC, British Columbia area, and throughout my education we learned a lot about Native American or Native Canadian folklore and traditions and customs. So I'm quite familiar with this story, but it's one that I think more people should be, so I'm going to read through it. The Raven has done a lot of impressive things. However, this is not because of his his size or appearance. He is no bigger than an ordinary raven, and his feathers are not any blacker either. However, Raven is clever, confident, and also very lucky. According to the First Nations tribe of the northwest coast of North America, the tribe that the peoples that I was educated more on was the Coast Salish people. According to the First Nations tribes of the northwest coast of North America, he was the one who first brought light into the world. And when he dropped some of it because an eagle was chasing him, those droppings became the moon and stars. Raven is a trickster, a bird who outwits his enemies either for his own benefit or sometimes for other people. He can take the form of other animals, people, or even objects if it suits his purpose. He is said to have helped nurture the first people, and also to have brought fire to earth. In some stories, Raven is the hero, in others the villain, driven by his greed or his hunger or his mischievous nature. One of Raven's more notable acts affected the way he looks today. Originally, the Raven had white feathers, and among his deeds was to warn the buffalo roaming on the plains when the hunters were approaching. The frustrated hunters discovered his actions and threw him into a fire, forever blackening his feathers. From that time on, poor Raven. Getting thrown into a fire doesn't sound any fun. Raven appears in many stories told by the First Nations tribes, including the Diligant of the northwest coast of North America. Clever, crafty Raven has the power to transform itself. Alright. Dokeybee. This guy looks interesting and potentially quite violent. Let's keep going though. Eshu. Interesting. Some trickster gods get to spend all their time doing what they do best, playing tricks on people or gods that cross their path. But Eshu is not that lucky. He actually has a job to do. Imagine being a god and having a job to do. Eshu is the messenger between gods and people. He knows every language on earth. Eshu was given this position because he once stole yams from the chief god Eva's garden and then tried to make Eva believe he had taken the yams himself. To limit the time Eshu could spend making mischief on his own, Eva appointed him to be his messenger and ordered him to report every night on the news and of the day among his subjects. It's a pretty good plan. Keep people out of trouble by keeping them busy. Loki. Everybody knows Loki, especially now with him included in the Marvel franchise. But probably a lot of people don't know how weird Loki is. Powerful trickster god of Norse mythology. Some people in Norse mythology are tragic. Others are villains. Loki is both. Although his parents were giants, Loki was raised by the chief Norse god, Odin. He was a talented shapeshifter and once used his skills to turn into a falcon. Things got worse from there. One of the saddest stories about Loki concerns the god Baldur. Baldur's death was prophesied, and to protect him, his mother Frigg secured a promise from every living thing not to hurt Baldur. However, she overlooked a little mistletoe plant, and so Loki fashioned the mistletoe into a spear and tricked a blind... There is a car alarm going on outside. And so Loki fashioned the mistletoe into a spear and tricked a blind god into throwing it at Baldur. The spear impaled Baldur, and he died. Yeah, so Loki's not really the nicest guy. sense in tricksters, really. Alright, look at this guy. What a vibe. Oh my god. The Tengu could grow or shrink its nose by waving a magic fan. Interesting power. Tengu, bird-like creature from Japanese folklore that loves to play with fire. The Tengu is a kind of monster spirit that first appeared in tales from ancient Japan and has been causing trouble ever since. Although the first Tengu resembled dogs, descriptions of them changed over time and they grew to be more like birds. I guess you can see here he's got the feathered wings. I don't know if I've described this guy as a bird, but that's an artist's interpretation, I suppose. Their fur became feathers and their snouts became beaks. By the 1300s, those beaks were changed again and evolved into long red noses. However, even though the Tengu began to look a bit more human, they were easy to tell apart because of their wings and ruby red skin. According to folklore, Tengu were powerful beings capable of good or bad deeds. They often play tricks on Buddhist priests and shapeshift into the guise of a priest to work mischief. Given their ability to fly and change form, their aerial attacks are particularly frightening. They can also control the weather, creating fierce winds, lashing rains, and rumbling thunder. Tengu are especially fond of playing with fire, often with disastrous consequences for any nearby buildings. That's not good. It is not surprising given these characteristics that the Tengu have been long associated with waging war. In more recent times, though, their reputation has softened a bit, or a little. They now do the occasional good deed. For deserving humans that happen to cross their path. Well, that's nice. Please don't set any fires. I guess that explains this. The Tengu take their name from a dog-like Chinese demon. This creature supposedly first arrived on Earth in a fiery meteor and was called a heavenly dog. That's cool. Good pepper. Good boy. Alright. Magic of Jinn. Interesting. Jinn, also called genies, are supernatural beings with great magical power who might be good or evil. Jinn is the Arabic word, and male and female jinn have appeared for thousands of years in Arabian cultures, ranging from northern Africa across to Persia in West Asia. Wherever they live, Jinn are hard to pin down because they can take so many forms. Okay, I didn't realize there were so many forms. That's really interesting. Okay, so let's take a look at this guy. This is clearly the kind of more traditional style, like you'd see in Aladdin. Marid, the most powerful of all Jinn. Marid can grant wishes to people, but won't do so without a good reason. Being imprisoned within a lamp, for example, is considered a good reason. Fair enough. While most Marids look quite human, the Marid mentioned in the Islamic religious book, the Korah, is a giant fish. Okay, fair enough. Oh my god, I just looked at this guy's face. Look at him. Oh, he looks like a really pissed off Calcifer. Ghouls. These Jinn are supposedly the children of Ibals. So these things. They are fond of eating people, as you do, usually after the people have died. That's nice. devil-like Jinn has only one power, but it's a strong one. It can place evil suggestions into the heart of men, women, or even other Jinn, an act unlikely to lead to a happy outcome. Iblis is often associated with the devil in Islamic culture. That makes sense. Okay, look, these guys are all so spooky. This guy's a camel. This guy's a camel. An early form of Jan. An early form of Jinn. These shapeshifters fit in well with their desert surroundings by taking the form of either a whirlwind or a white camel. Jan also have the power to replenish oases that have dried up, and so it makes sense for thirsty desert travelers to stay on their good side. Yeah, that sounds like a friend you'd want to have. Okay, I want to look at these two specifically because this guy looks creepy. This looks like a good boy who's probably not a good boy. And then I guess I'm going to read these guys because I don't want to leave them out. And also they look like they're having a bad time. Okay, this looks really creepy and I'm really into it. Look at those spooky hands. Oh, just coming out of the darkness. I'm sure most of you are watching this right before bed, which is probably the best idea. Okay. Mythical, this spirit from Hindu mythology, may be all around us. Great! Mythical can inhabit people who have recently died. My actual nightmare. And in so doing, keep the dead bodies from ever decaying. Okay, that sounds kind of convenient, but like only if you work at a funeral home. They can be frightened away with spells, but of course, this only means they will become a problem for someone else. Okay, buddy. Leave bereaved people alone. The Jinn are closely related to the Jinn of Arabic folklore. They like to take the shape of dogs because good boy. Although sometimes they choose other animals to imitate. This ability to transform allows them to wander freely among towns and villages without being detected. There. Okay, now let's look at the Nasness. I'm great at reading. This Jinn from Arabic folklore is hard to miss. The Nasness look like human beings, cut in half from top to bottom, with one arm, one leg, half a head, and half a body. Not surprisingly, it gets around by hopping on 1 foot, buddy. Oh, that's kind of sad. Okay, let's keep going. The werewolf. I think everybody already knows what a werewolf is. Very spooky. Look at him looking at the moon. This one looks particularly large and aggressive. I'm being very careful when turning the pages because, of course, this is a library book. Alright. Okay. Vampires. Everybody knows some vampire stuff. But this looks like it covers some different kinds, which is really interesting. So, I'll probably skip the European vampire since I think that's the one we all already know. Edimu. The Edimu are creatures from the ancient Sumerian civilization of Mesopotamia. The good news is that, unlike many other vampires, they did not drink anyone's blood. However, the bad news is they fed off the life force of a person, and when that was gone, the person was gone too. Interesting. I've heard about these types of vampires before. there's a character that's quite similar to this in a series that I read called The Dresden Files, which is about a wizard. And in that book, there is a vampire who kind of drains people's life force, but through sex. It's very interesting. Yeah, okay. The Buchan. This creature from South America, American legends, resembles a large flying snake that likes to whistle. One look from a Buchan would paralyze its victim, and then it could start sucking blood. Fortunately, Buchans prefer to attack goats rather than human beings. No one knows why, but it's better not to ask questions. Fair. But also look at this danger noodle. And I pooped the snoot. Okay. Mandurgo. This vampire comes from the folklore of the Philippines in Southeast Asia. It's okay to meet a Mandurgo by day when it takes the shape of a beautiful woman. Oh yeah, sounds perfectly safe. But at night things are different. In the dark, this guy becomes a winged monster who sticks its barbed tongue down a victim's throat and sucks out as much blood as it wants. Yeah, do not go on dates with beautiful women. This is what I'm learning today. Okay. Ramanga. On the African island of Madagascar, stories are told of Ramanga, a vampire who strikes fear in a noble person's heart. And with good reason, this vampire targets high-ranking people, and it is not satisfied to drink their blood alone. It will also eat their nail clippings, although how it obtains them is not specifically explained. Okay, that's kind of weird. Most vampires never age and are able to live forever. You know, goals. Okay, let's see. Cat Sith. Fairy cat from Celtic myth that haunts the Scottish Highlands. Look at the put. Look at the put though. So scary put. He's a baby. He's a baby. So scary put. Trying to attack everybody and be scary. Make more scary. According to Scottish legend, the cat Sith, or fairy cat, is a big black cat the size of a large dog with a white tuft of hair on its chest. That guy. The cat Sith is said to like standing upright, at least when no one is watching. Stories vary about this magical creature. According to some ancient Celtic tales, Cat Sith was not simply a fairy cat, but rather a witch that had taken on a cat's form. It was said that a witch could assume the form of a cat 8 times, but if she tried it once more, she would have to remain a cat forever. Interesting. I wonder if that has something to do with where cats having 9 lives came from. Interesting. Well, if you have a cat that is black, apart from a white kind of V shape on its chest and is a little bit bigger than the average cat, and it tends to stand on its back legs when you're not looking, maybe do some research on this guy. Oh, Kitsune. Shape-shifting fox spirit of Japanese folklore, also known as the nine-tailed fox. Many of you might know this kind of legend from the anime Naruto / manga. The kitsune is known for enjoying a long life. By the time it reaches its 100th birthday, it will have long outlived any ordinary fox. Every 100 years, the kitsune grows a new tail. It can have up to 9, so many live a very long time indeed. A kitsune can shapeshift, taking the form of an old priest, a young woman, like the spirit gem things from oh, what's that? Madoka Magica. Yeah. Kitsune's ability to shapeshift extends beyond its appearance. They can also change the look of the world around them. A rustic hut might appear as a grand palace. A field of hay might be transformed into a treasure of golden coins. A kitsune, it is said, can also take over a person's mind. Some have been reported to be able to fly or breathe fire like dragons. Good or bad, kitsune are unpredictable, and each one is unique. So the safe thing to do is for anyone who meets a fox is to be respectful as possible and to hope for the best. I mean, really, that's generally what you can just do in your life. Be as respectful as possible and hope for the best. That's a good motto to keep. As it gets older, the kitsune's tail changes from red to gold and then to white. So you can see here he's got some red tails, and then he's got a couple gold tails, and then he's got a couple white tails. Does he have all 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He does. So this guy right here is at least 900 years old, though probably quite a bit older considering the white tails. Very interesting. Sun Wukong. Skilled fighter in Chinese mythology, also known as the Monkey King. According to Chinese legend, Sun Wukong burst forth into the world when a strong